So hello, Emma. Um, you've worked on a cruise ship for a couple of years. Today I was going to interview you on the topics of living there on the cruise ship, working on the cruise ship, and adapting to the different cultures on the cruise ship. So then maybe we could start with an introduction.
My name is Emma. I worked 6 years on Costa Cruise Lines. Costa Cruise Lines is an Italian company, which is now in hands of Carnival Cruises.
Okay. You yourself are, of course, Belgian.
Yes.
And the Costa cruise ship that you worked on, which countries did they go to mostly?
Well, it's an Italian company, and the language on board is English, but everybody speaks Italian, of course, and they travel all over the world.
Okay. And how long did you work on cruise ship?
I worked 6 years, but in that time they didn't do Dubai and Asia yet. They do that now, but when I was there, it was mostly Europe, Caribbean, America, and the North.
Okay.
And they had like 6 or 7 ships when I was working. Now they have like 15,
Okay, so it's
even more maybe.
quite a lot.
Yes.
And when was your job then?
When?
And what in the year when did you start working for Costa?
I started working in November 1994, 95. And I flew from Dominican Republic straight to Italy, to Geneva, and I went on board my first cruise ship, Costa Riviera, which was a steamship,
Okay.
a very
So-
old ship,
Before Costa, you've worked abroad.
in Dominican Republic.
Okay.
2 years.
Okay. Then I would like to move to the first topic, which is living abroad. So it was a Italian company, so the native language of Italian wasn't necessary, or
No, when I first arrived on the ship, I only spoke Spanish, German, English, and French, and my Dutch, of course. And it was not mandatory to speak Italian, but because I was doing a trip where there were mostly German and French tourists, and not so many Italians, so they said it was okay that I didn't speak Italian. But of course, when you are there, they drop you in,
Yeah.
and you just learn Italian
So-
as it comes.
comes with experience.
Yeah.
And English was useful or not really?
English was necessary because all the paperwork, everything on board is in English. It's the language, official language
Yeah,
from
official
the cruise line.
Okay. Any friends you've made on the cruise that you still have in aren't contact
Yes, a
with?
lot.
or-
I've met a lot of people, but my first contract is always the special one because you arrive on board and you meet so many people, you make so many friends, and those are the people that stay in your heart forever. Because afterwards, you go away, you go to ship, and then you know how it is. You need to say goodbye. You get heartbroken because you need to say your friends goodbye, and then you go to another ship, and on the second ship and the third or the fourth ship, then you are a little bit distant because then you don't feel like making friendships anymore because then you think up front, oh, they are gonna leave anyway, and then I get lonely. Or
Yeah.
so you protect yourself a little bit. You build a little bit of wall around you, which is just a shame, but still, a lot of people are still friends all over the world.
Yeah, that's of course a positive aspect that you do have friends all over the world now that
Yes.
you've been all
Yeah.
over the world.
And I see a lot of them.
Yeah.
And we hear each other on Facebook and
Yeah, these days internet. it's easy.
Instagram and WhatsApp.
Was there a big difference for women compared to men on the cruise ship? Did you feel less at an advantage, or?
No, I think for me it was difficult because I was a woman and I was at the end I was a manager, which is not very acceptable, and Italy is still a macho land, so a lot of the Italians, they could not understand why a little Belgian girl would arrive on the ship and she would be in charge of 17 people at the reception, they would be like, oh, and who the hell are you, So sometimes you would have the how you say that, the competition between them, especially people who are jealous. But I remember that there was a lot of jealousy between people who had a European passport and the people who didn't, like Peruvians or um, Guatemala. All those people, they, in some countries they could not go on land. Like in Israel, for example, we would arrive and then the authorities, they would say, okay, today no Peruvians on land. And I was the only Belgian girl always, so I always had my European Belgian passport. I could go everywhere I wanted. And a lot of people, they looked at me wrong and they said, oh, you are so lucky because, and I was like, yeah, but I didn't choose where I was born.
They were a little bit
but
envious.
It was an advantage because with a European passport you can go wherever you want. And that's, apart if you're a girl or a boy, that didn't matter, but the passports and the languages, like I spoke 6 languages fluently, and then a lot of people were very envious, like, oh, and yeah, there is a lot of envy on the ship, yeah.
The safety on board, did the company take any precautions, or were there any stories you have of safety that wasn't good or was good? Or?
Yes, the safety was, the security was very strict. Well, now it's even more after 9/11, but before it was already very strict. And when we were in the US waters, we would have a US Marshal on board, and he would be undercover. And when he arrived on board, he came to the reception to say, I'm in that room, and if you need something. And I remember once in Jamaica that passengers were on land, and they came back on board with a suitcase full of drugs, as if you can just walk on board from your excursion with a suitcase. And I remember the securities running behind them in the crew area and catching them and putting them in jail. We had a jail on board.
Oh.
Yeah, the cruise ship. All ships have a hospital and they have jails. They even have a morgue. But the securities, they were Israelis. They were all old soldiers. Now it's all Indian guys. But in those times, they were all, and they were very strict. They were very, very.
There is, of course, the cultural dimensions of Hofstede. I would like to go over them now. First off, maybe power distance, since you've already given a lot of examples for that. I would say, given the information that you've given me, that power distance is a big thing in Italy because, well, there's a big difference in terms of crew and then the captain and the different levels and power that you get.
Yeah.
Where did you experience that most? In that second cruise, maybe with the.
No, I had one
else?
captain, and he liked me a lot because all departments, all the passengers get comment forms, and they fill out how they like the service on board, and each department get points. And the higher the points of all the departments, the higher the bonus is from the captain. Because
so even more competition.
Yes, all the department heads, they would get a bonus if you have higher rates. So if my receptionists were rude or bad, then the points would go down and I would not get my bonus. So I would train my receptionist to be perfect. So my bonus was like $500 for one cruise. I would get extra because of a good comment form. Then the hotel director and the captain, the higher all the levels were, the higher their bonus was. And I always had the highest level of all the ships. My department was always the highest, and that captain, he knew that, and he always asked me on his ship. So whenever I was at home,
so that he could get the biggest
yes,
bonus of all
yes,
the ships.
Yes, and then he would call the company, and then he said, "Hey, the Van Hee, is she home?" Yes, okay, you send her to my ship. So I always had to go to his ship, and he was like a father to me. He was really nice. He's a really nice man.
And you were a manager then?
I was a manager then, yes. Okay. And sometimes he would call me, and then he said, "Come to my office." And I was like, "Oh, yes, captain," because he's like the president of a land, so you have to go. So I went there, and then he said, "Oh, listen, you know, we have some German people, and they are in a hospital in Greece, and they don't have any insurance, and they need money. Are we going to help them, or what are we going to do?" And And then I was like, yes, but I'm just the head of the reception. Why shouldn't you ask the hotel director? Who am I to decide? Yes, but you know, and you know all those languages, and I am asking you. And then I had to decide if the cruise company would help those people financially for an operation. And then I was like,
So he gave you a lot of responsibility,
yes,
even though you weren't really
yes, even if it was
maybe
not
qualified
my
to
job,
help, yeah.
but he
Still trusted you.
yes, he was so high up with me. He thought that I was very organized, and I was a talent in organizing and in solving problems. So he knew that, and he would always ask me. And sometimes I was like, oh, ask somebody else, because it's not my duty to do that. But and then all the others, they would be pissed off because the captain
Yeah.
asked me, but it was not my fault that he's asking
The
me.
people that it is their actual job probably
Yeah,
were a little bit mad
yeah,
as
they
well.
were angry because the captain asked me, but then because of course you have to follow the hierarchy of the people, and especially with the Italians, they are very macho on that part. Huh?
So then Italians would be more of a masculine society.
It's all for the status. Huh?
Yeah.
If you have a degree in engineering, they call you a dottore. You know, and then they put the name card and they say Dottore Giovanni whatever, and then you're like, oh, in Belgium you're just an engineer.
Yeah.
I mean, but in Italy it's it's different, and especially on a cruise ship, you have a first officer, a second officer, a third officer. The third officer could bring the coffee for the first officer. You know, it was very yeah.
Thank you. That was my final question, and that was the interview. Thank you for sitting down with me. Okay.